Bombshell news in the Wall Street Journal right before the weekend. The paper reporting that employees at OpenAI had previously raised alarms about the Tumbler Ridge shooter. Now, last June, while using ChatGPT, Jesse Van Rootseller described scenarios involving gun violence over several days. The content was flagged by OpenAI's automated review system, and it set off alarm bells inside the company. Internally, about a dozen staff members debated what to do next. Some employees saw the posts as a sign of real-world violence. They pushed leaders to notify Canadian law enforcement about the behavior. In the end, OpenAI leadership decided against contacting authorities. That news has caused a lot of uproar in this country, politicians and more getting involved. Let's go to Mitch Joel, tech advisor, investor, and author of Control Alt Delete. He's with us this morning. Hi, Mitch.
Hey, Elias. So,
what should a tech company do in this situation? Because I hear the slippery slope arguments already, but at the same time, this was a mass murder here. So how do you view this when OpenAI and their systems flag things and leaders fail to act?
There's so many different avenues, and I have very conflicted thoughts and opinions. I'll start off with the idea that it is good to know that the system actually flagged this. We as a society have spent 2+ decades watching social media fail to filter, acknowledge, and even shut down things like live suicide attempts and things like that. So good news in the sense of, wow, these AI detectors are actually fairly good. Good news in that a human being was in the loop and actually saw this and brought it forward. That part, super impressed with. The secondary parts where my values, my thinking, and everything else kind of fumbles back and forth, because I do not believe that anybody employed at OpenAI, whether they're on the safety team or not, have the equipped skills to actually do a clinical risk assessment here. So that can be problematic. It's problematic on the user side in the sense of by flagging it or sending somebody that could introduce another level of harm. There is certain privacy and surveillance concerns I have, even with just the way the OpenAI system is working. Was that person using a free version or a paid version? I mean, if you are constantly being surveilled through some type of AI algorithm that is making some type of intended value call here too, that's problematic. And then I think, at a macro level, you have now also inter-country rules and laws and how that operates. And more importantly, in this instance, which is excessively tragic, the police and mental health professionals were already involved with the shooter. And my concern is that our government is going to over-push the importance on OpenAI when in reality, they have long been engaged with this family. And what does that say?
So that's a really important point, Mitch, because it'd be one thing if nobody knew anything and OpenAI actually had information, they failed to act, and they were the only people that could have possibly figured out this was coming. But the RCMP, regardless of what he did on ChatGPT, the RCMP had been to this person's house, removed weapons from this person's house. He was known to authorities, to the police, and it didn't prevent anything. So you wonder if anything changes, even if OpenAI alerts authorities. Having said that, Mitch, could I, one thing that I heard from a panelist this week, which I think is another facet of this. Panelists said, hey, you know what? You go to a therapist and you tell them you're about to harm a whole bunch of people. They have to, by law. They have to tell police, right? So you wonder if the same type of thing should apply, right? That same type, you have privilege with doctors and that kind of stuff. But if you say things like, I'm going to commit mass violence, they actually have a professional obligation. So I wonder if ChatGPT should have those same rules.
They do, but as a patient, when you walk in to be advised by this professional, you're signing a consent form that agrees to that also. Your intent when you walk in, whether it's by your own will or you're being forced to for whatever reason, is that is the social contract within that environment. What I'm saying is we are now asking digital media companies to make these types of judgment calls that could be very contentious. And again, if you go back to what I said originally, it seems like it quote unquote worked. There's a tragedy here. I don't want to diminish that. But these are new systems that we've had in place that actually brought it to a front. Now, the question I think we should be asking is, why didn't it go beyond that? Why did the company decide not to pursue this? What was happening there? So the real idea here is I believe we should be, one, excessively cautious and figure out what that means and build that into terms and service. I think that's going to be hard to do in terms of how countries and laws deal with that. That's one side. But I want to be very careful in this particular instance that we are not shifting the responsibility of this situation onto an AI platform when we already have things like established legal and law enforcement mechanisms that were actually already in motion in this case. And so it's very difficult to make the right call. This is all hindsight and revisionist history to a certain degree. I'm equally concerned that people using this, whether they're seeking help or using it as a way to stress test the system or whatever it might be, don't fall into a level where we're suddenly, because of these instances, creating a much higher level of surveillance.
So this is the thing. Like, do you trust? And we've heard some comments from Canadian officials, like the Minister for Artificial Intelligence, Evan Solomon, that seemingly say they could use this story as a reason to go further in online harms bills that they are now proposing. Do you worry that governments could abuse stories like this to surveil us too much?
We as consumers need to figure out what level of surveillance we are willing to endure when we are in a world of mind-numbingness surveillance. So it's one thing if you are, let's say, being surveyed for your data on a free platform. I think we have to have a better understanding of what our rights are if you're paying to use a chatbot, to have some type of intimate conversation with it, whether you're being goofy or it's very, very serious, and what are those thresholds and what is the testing? Because right now, we all forget, it wasn't long ago when Google wanted to put ads against Gmail and Google Docs, and we were uproared in this idea that people might be reading it and pulling some intent out of it. And suddenly we're in this world saying, oh, and again, we have to be very, there's slippery slopes when something tragic happens that we use that as the bellwether standard. I feel we are being overly surveilled with these technologies and that they are benefiting even more, even when we're paying for it based off of the data. And so we just need to have clear, proper rules in place that we can all, in earnest, abide by.
Good discussion here, Mitch. Thanks so much for it today. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Elias.
Mitch Joel, tech advisor, investor, author of Control Alt Delete.
The newest tracks. Let's go. New music. And the next big thing.
Always on the new music first.
Your first place to hear it all.
'Cause you gon' like it, love it, wanna play it twice. Playing now.
iHeart New Music. Your digital station for brand new drops, fresh finds, and tomorrow's bangers.
I think we need something new.
Discover iHeart New Music. Always fresh, always first. Stream now on the free iHeartRadio app.